Hello, my name is Vinita Kumar, and in this video we're going to talk about compatibility-related issues between donors and recipients. So let's get started, and thank you for being here today. One of the most common things we hear from our potential donors is, I must be a perfect match to the recipient in order to donate. But before we even get to matching, the goal of the medical team is to find a medically healthy donor first. This is the hardest thing to find. So how do we identify somebody as a medically healthy donor? This is done through testing, extensive testing that includes blood tests, urine tests to assess kidney function, general health conditions like blood pressure measurements, and tests like electrocardiogram, X-rays and CTs, all of this to assess your heart, lung, and kidney health. The goal of the testing is to find out if you'll go through life almost as well with one kidney as you would if you had two kidneys. And if the answer to that is yes, then you are now a medically healthy donor. So the key is to have a healthy donor first, which is the hardest thing to find. So once we have a healthy donor, your transplant team can work with you towards the next step of matching. So what are the next steps? So let's now address the statement, I must be a perfect match to the recipient in order to donate. Well, this is not entirely true. What is a perfect match? The only true perfect match is an identical twin. And sadly, only 0.3% of the world's population, or about every 3 in 1,000 deliveries worldwide, are identical twins. So what does your transplant care team mean when they say perfect match? They mean you are a blood group match and a tissue match. So the question then becomes, how do we know a donor and recipient are a match? When thinking about donor and recipient matching, it's helpful to divide the match in two areas. 1, blood type matching, and 2, tissue type matching. And tissue matching is also called HLA matching. So the first step is to explore blood group matching. This is the same process at that which is used to confirm safety of a blood transfusion. Thinking broadly, there are 4 major blood types in humans, A, B, AB, and O. Donors and recipients should ideally have the same blood type to be a match, and differences in blood type could lead to damage of the donated organ cells and organ transplant rejection. An exception to this rule is AB recipient, also known as a universal recipient, can receive an organ from any blood type. Similarly, for donors, a O donor is also known as a universal donor and can donate an organ to any blood type. Some of you may have the Rh factor and think, oh my, I have the Rh factor, I cannot donate. The fact is, Rh factor is not an issue for transplantation. When you are a blood type match, medically we call it ABO compatible. So a blood group match is equal to being a ABO compatible match. The next step is to figure out if you are a tissue match or a HLA match. So how do we tell that? Red blood cells tell us about blood group matching. White blood cells tell us about HLA matching. We all have white blood cells, and on the surface of our white blood cells there are proteins. These proteins, depicted in green on top of the cell, are called antigens. And since we're dealing with the tissue antigens at this point, more specifically, we call it HLA antigens. The HLA antigens are specific proteins present on the surface of most cells in the human body, and they differ between the organ donors and recipients. We take white blood cells from donors and recipients and see if the proteins on the surface of the cell match. In general, the closer the match, the better. However, with the anti-rejection medications we are using today, even if the HLA antigens on the donors and recipients are not exactly the same, you can receive a kidney from that donor and expect very good long-term results as long as you're taking your anti-rejection medication. What is really important is this other test called HLA cross-match. HLA cross-match is what ultimately decides HLA matching. So how is that done? Well, your team takes the donor white cells that represents the cell of the donor kidney, and they take the recipient blood, which represents the immune system of the person receiving the kidney. The two are put together, and if the donor cells remain unharmed, this is a negative cross-match. In this case, negative is good. A negative cross-match means it is an acceptable HLA match, and we call the pair an HLA compatible pair. So a negative cross-match means that HLA or tissue match means HLA compatibility. And if you have a negative cross-match with your donor, then your long-term outcomes with good anti-rejection medication use are very good. A negative cross-match is what allows not only identical twins or siblings to donate, but also parents and children to donate, and also more importantly, friends and even strangers to donate. So putting all of this together, if a donor and recipient are a blood group match, they're called ABO compatible. If they have a negative HLA cross-match and go through the HLA matching process, they're HLA compatible. And if you have an ABO and HLA compatible match, you now have a compatible pair. And a compatible pair can proceed to transplantation and expect a successful road ahead. But what if a donor and a recipient are not an ABO or HLA compatible match? There are other options. To learn more, come watch part 2 of this video series. See you soon.